last year alone, 2017, it was estimated, I don't know if final numbers are out yet or not, but it was estimated to reach the $200 billion mark in online education.
Get ready to build, protect, and sell your expertise online with the Online Genius Podcast. You'll laugh. We hope you won't cry, but you'll always be informed and prepared so you can have the success you want. Here's your host, Bobby Klink.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Online Genius Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Klink, and I am really excited for today's show because we're going to be talking about a way that you can make money online. And it's also one that's near and dear to my heart because it's one of the methods that I use, and that's creating online courses. Now, developing an online course was really my first foray into creating something to sell as part of my business as an online entrepreneur. And I'm currently working on a bunch more, and I probably will keep working on a bunch more forever. So this is going to be fun. I've got a lot of questions that hopefully we're going to get answered. I'm pretty sure we are. But, as always, you're not going to have to listen to me give advice about this because, quite honestly, who wants to listen to a lawyer give business advice? Instead, today's guest expert is Michael Marcial. And Michael is a world-traveling entrepreneur, speaker, and mentor with a passion to help others to succeed online. In the last 13 years, Michael has utilized his expertise in social media and marketing strategy to help his clients bring in almost $20 million in revenue. His newest community, the 5-Figure Workweek, is his platform to work with entrepreneurs, coaches, mentors, and speakers to help them build a business that creates their desired impact and income. He accredits his features in Forbes, Inc., and the Today Show to his unique insights that move his clients to action. And he didn't put it in his intro, but he is also an expert on course creation issues and helps entrepreneurs address issues related to launching an online course. And so that's why I brought him on the show today. So welcome to the Online Genius Podcast, Michael.
Bobby, it's so good to be here, man. Thanks for having me on. And by the way, do you charge me your lawyer fees for being here? Like, am I getting an invoice in the mail after this?
Yeah, didn't you know I didn't tell you that in advance?
Yeah, that wasn't in the document that you sent over. But all right,
okay. I tell you what, I won't charge you my fees if you don't charge me yours. How about that?
That makes it fair.
Okay, now, Michael, before we talk about the online courses, which look, I'm excited to talk about, I'm going to ask you questions based on my experience. I'm going to chime in with some things that I've heard from a bunch of other people. But before I do that, before I get to content, I always like to ask my guests something personal so that people can get to know them. And in preparing for the interview, you mentioned something that was really interesting to me, and that's that you have a capsule wardrobe. Now, what in the world is that?
Okay, so I'm going to make this as short of a story as I can. So something that I don't put a lot of time and effort into is my clothing. Now, not necessarily like what I wear. I'm really choosy on what I wear. But I don't like to spend the time shopping. I don't like to spend the money shopping. I'm not the most stylish guy out there. I know what I like and I know what works for me. So a capsule wardrobe is a really tight, almost a minimalist approach to what you wear. And the reason why I kind of live that lifestyle, it's so funny. If you would see my closet at home, it's pretty sizable, and maybe a quarter of it is clothing, maybe. And it's just in the morning, I have a routine. I hit it. I know exactly what I'm going to wear. I don't have, too much to choose from. It's the right items. And for me, it's just a matter of being effective. I hate wasting time. I don't like spending excess amounts of money on myself in that way. And so a capsule wardrobe just eliminates a lot of time, money, and energy. It works for me.
I have to admit, I have a lot more clothes than a capsule wardrobe. But,
yeah.
My wife would point out, I probably wear, I don't know, the same 5 shirts over and over again and the same 3 or 4 pairs of jeans over and over again during the winter. And then in the summer, I have like 3 or 4 pairs of shorts I wear and about the same thing.
Yeah.
So maybe I should adopt it, and then my closet wouldn't be so full.
It's pretty sweet actually, because like in the morning, it's just like, boom, I know exactly the pants I'm wearing, the shoes, the shirt, and it's not a thought anymore. Like we have so many thoughts in a day. Decisions, really important decisions we get to make around our business, our life. Clothing shouldn't be one of them. And so like just short of having a personal shopper or a stylist, this is really simple for me. I know exactly what that looks like. And most people will have, if they practice a capsule wardrobe, they'll have kind of what you described, like they'll have their capsule, if you will, per season. I have a very limited wardrobe. And then of course I'll add pieces as they make sense. But yeah, man, it just saves time, saves brain power. And then I get to do what I love to do, which is traveling, playing with my clients, hanging out in the mastermind group that you mentioned, the 5-figure work week, hanging out with my family. That's important to me, not choosing what I'm going to wear.
I think that all makes sense. And since you talked about making decisions, let's get to kind of something more substantive. And let's turn now to the online course discussion we want to have. And I want to start with just basics. I think most people have a sense of it, of what an online course is, but how would you define that term and kind of what is an online course from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, in my perception, it's really a package, a way to package your knowledge, your experience, your passion, and sell it online in a fairly passive way. That's how I would describe it.
Now, and I think most online entrepreneurs have heard all of these wonderful stories about people who launch and make 6 and 7 figures and how they're rich and now on a beach somewhere. Is that a realistic expectation for an entrepreneur in launching an online course?
First of all, no. Is it possible? Absolutely. But having said that, there's got to be certain elements that are part of that. But man, I'll tell you what, I'm not sure exactly when it's going to drop, but I have my own thoughts about the people that claim to, do these massive launches. And it's totally possible. It really is. If you have the audience, if you have something amazing and incredible, and if you've set that up the right way, and you then market the hell out of it, and it catches like wildflowers, maybe wildfire or wildflowers, whichever one spreads quicker, right? Like if it goes like that, then sure, you can hit a 6-figure launch for sure. But more of the time, the client that I work with, we're certainly going for the impact, right? We're wanting to reach those people. We're wanting to be reimbursed for our knowledge and our energy that we put out there and the efforts that we put into this course and the training and the time and the years and years of expertise we put into this thing. So we want that. But at the same time, we're going for long-term results. So a course should definitely take time out of your equation. It's something that can be sold 24/7, sleeping or not. And over its lifetime, it should work for you. It should definitely be a profitable thing for you. But 6-7-figure launches are definitely not the norm. And we definitely shouldn't treat it as such.
It's refreshing to hear you say that because, look, you and I both know part of the reason why we hear about these 6 and 7-figure launches and the people we probably hear it from are often people who are trying to then sell me their service, helping me create a course.
Boom.
So it's great to hear, since that's something that you do, that you're honest with people and aren't going to say, hey, I'm going to make you a millionaire. But let me ask, so if that's not what you're going to do, if you're not going to get rich from it, why in the world should an online entrepreneur think about creating an online course?
Right. Okay. So for most people that are working for themselves, they're an entrepreneur, they're a coach, a mentor, a speaker, an author, an expert in their field, or would like to be perceived as such, or an authority. An online course is like the precipice. Like if you think about the ways that you could deliver your message to the world, right? Let's put it into the most consumable way possible. And right now, people are spending hundreds of billions of dollars on online content. Last year alone, 2017, it was estimated, I don't know if final numbers are out yet or not, but it was estimated to reach the $200 billion mark in online education, specifically courses, programs, things like that. And so why it's so wildly valuable and why somebody should think about it is because they can get a piece of that massive, massive pie while becoming an expert. No longer do we have to sit there and consume. We don't have to consume the BS from the guy that tells you that they launched a course and is now made millions and millions of dollars. May be true, definitely not the norm, probably lying to you. And then we don't have to sit in that consuming role. We actually start becoming the creator of which other people get to consume. They get to level up. They get to be part of that message. So it's income, it's impact rolled into one in the most relevant way that people are spending their money. And then it becomes a part of your overall strategy and something I talk about frequently in the 5-Figure Workweek group to then level up to value ladder from something as easy to get into as an online course to your group programs or your masterminds or your high-level one-on-one programs or your retreats or your conferences or whatever it is that you'd rather be doing. But then we get to save the time, right? Like, Bobby, when you're working with typical clients, you're probably going over similar, concepts and ideas and ways to protect your business, protect your content, IP, that kind of stuff. And that's why you've created those courses, so you can go over that same information, that general information to the masses. And then if they want to and need to play with you at a different level, they need your time and attention, they get to level up and choose into that. So I love online courses and programs. It's why, 60 to 70% of our business focuses on getting that content into an online course format. And it just works, man. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think that's all great advice. And my situation, I think, is a bit different. And maybe it's not, but part of it is that as a lawyer, I really can't run a true mastermind group because that would kind of destroy the concept of lawyer-client confidentiality.
Absolutely.
And legal advice. So I have to do one-on-one, but I can provide people with educational pieces. And so I'm able to get some of the advantages of a mastermind group or those other group coaching issues through a course. And quite honestly, with me, another part of it was that lawyers are expensive, and a course is one of the few ways that I could figure out to actually offer people who are not yet to the point of being able to justify paying me or any other lawyer to get the information they need and to start doing it themselves, even if that's not the perfect solution. I'd rather they start doing something rather than sit on their hands and say, well, I can't afford a lawyer, so I'm going to do nothing. So
Exactly.
It's a bit different for me, but I think the advice you gave is great general advice, and it's definitely a great way to establish yourself and have some presence. I know, for example, I have a Facebook ads team. I hired that team because I took an online course from the person who was on that company. And so that just kind of naturally led me up her value ladder. So
Boom.
It definitely works that way. I know that you would say that there are maybe some people who creating a course is not right for them because of their personality traits or something like that. So what are the personality traits that someone needs to launch a successful online course?
Ooh, so that's an interesting question. So, if I just met somebody, and this, I guess this has happened plenty, where somebody just reaches out like, hey, so-and-so said I need to talk to you about getting my coaching program online. And just in knowing who they are and the following or the audience that they do or do not have, their personality, to be able to share the information in a way that people are going to want to consume. Like, the reality is that it sometimes isn't the best approach. So generally speaking, like if you're going to put out some content and have it video based, meaning like you're going to be showing your mug on that camera, you've got to be comfortable in your own skin. That's number one. You've got to have that self-confidence, that self-assurance to know, and I guess the self-awareness to make that decision. But here's some interesting things too. If you are the nerdiest of people, your personality, comparatively to, let's say, a Tony Robbins, who's like off the wall outward energy, is like a wet towel, let's say. Okay. I'm just keeping it real. If that's you, but you still have the attention of your ideal audience, you could certainly make a course. Maybe you don't do as much video. Maybe you do more slides and screen shares of your content or the things that you need to share with them. But like, if they love seeing you, then show your face. Like, that's the important part. If you have the audience, you know what they're looking for and you're it, then give them what they're looking for. But, generally speaking, like I'm engaged with good content and, a little bit of, screen presence and making sure that you're lively and you're going to keep me engaged for the, 2 hours of content that you have, or 3 hours of content, or however much. That plays into strategy as well. Like, we're talking about course completion. Like, if you have that big offer at the end, like, hey, you went through my course, right? And you loved what we talked about, yet you need more specificity in your content, like your business, your, whatever your niche is. That's where we want people to get. We want them to finish your course out, right? We want them to get all the juicy goodness. We want that to happen so that they can choose in at a higher level. If they're not completing it because you're not landing with them, then none of the other stuff, it doesn't even matter. So, just give your people what they're looking for, and you'll be just fine.
I think it's great that you talked about the concept of people knowing whether they're going to be comfortable kind of doing with their mug on screen. I'll be honest with you. I was never uncomfortable with the concept of that. I was a trial lawyer by training. I love talking and whatever. So that's not a problem for me. But that actually was something that was one of my big blocks forever, because I was like, man, I don't want to have to go through that trouble of creating all of these videos of myself. And I was worried about reading scripts and all those things because I don't ever read scripts. So that was something that held me back for a while until I realized, look, I don't need quite honestly, there's no reason for me to be on camera most of the time. So my course, just as a spoiler alert, each module, I have an intro video with me talking, looking at the camera, and everything else is a screen share or a slideshow. And, I think it works well. And that's seems to be what I see with most courses these days. So I think that's a good point, that people need to get over that block, or can get over that block.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great points.
But I do have to share something with you. It's just kind of funny because, I think a lot of times we see marketing where people are really high energy and you get into the course and they're not. Ironically, I won't mention what it was, but yesterday I was looking at something about creating some systems, and this person had us a course about it. And the marketing is great and all that, but then you can take a free mini course, like the first 3 lessons, and the person talks like this throughout the entire show. And I'm like, why in the world would anyone ever take your course? But that's a side issue, I guess. But, is that a concern that people have about not having the energy or not being able to actually be engaging when they teach? And if so, how do you deal with that for people?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting thing. I feel like there's 2 ways to approach that answer. Is that, like, if you're putting your message out there, you're putting your content out there. Let's say, for example, you are a business consultant, right? That's your thing. You work with, let's say, small businesses to, on their sales teams or their marketing or whatever aspect you look at. There's 2 ways of going about this. One is you can put out content. I've heard a couple of the other episodes where people are talking about social media or marketing and things like that. Like, if you put your thing out there and you are your authentic self, like Bobby, if you came over to my place in Utah and we hung out, I talk exactly like this. Like, I'm actually a lot goofier usually. And I'm sure that'll come out, but like, that's who I am. And so if somebody resonates with that, guess what? They show up. They're on those live videos. They're following me on Facebook. They're in my Facebook group, right? They're already playing in that arena. Now, if somebody doesn't resonate, it doesn't make sense, they tend not to stick around. They're not in your groups. They're not messaging you. They're not connecting with you in those ways. And so in this case, the 2 approaches is like, okay, one is you can continue to just be your real self. Like, let down the guards. Don't worry about what people think. Just knowing that there are literally hundreds of thousands of people that are waiting to hear your message, hear your content from you, the way that you deliver it. It doesn't matter who you are. It really doesn't. There's a way to make that relevant to people. So there's that authenticity approach to say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to be me, and people are going to love it, or they're not going to stick around. Or there's the other approach. The other approach says, okay, well, if I'm really that worried about showing up, either vocally or visually on camera, I mean, that's real. We hear that public speaking and just being in public, and sharing your stuff is like one of the top fears in the entire world. And I get that. There's a lot that's wrapped up in there, different insecurities and, things from our childhood, like you name it, it just all pops up when we're doing that. And so here's the other half of that story is like, if you want to become more confident in your approach that way, there are courses out there. There are people out there to hire that can help you on the basics of that. Confidence, stage presence, body language, the verbiage that you use, vocabulary. I mean, you name it, stylist, like the way that you show up, visually, physically. There are ways to improve those things that you may want to, but like at the end of the day, you just got to be real. You got to be yourself. That's what I've seen in the last 13 years be the thing that the one aspect that is the differentiator between success and struggling through it is just authenticity, just being real. So I just say, put your stuff out there in the way that you intend, the way that's so natural for you, and level up in the ways that you need to. Not everybody is like, if I show up, they're like, oh, okay, I'm not digging you for whatever reason. If that's something I can improve, I will do that. I will not, I'm not going to sit here and say, screw them, they're wrong. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a look at that because maybe I need to speak more effectively. Maybe I need to have a script, that I have. Maybe I need to have a personal branding statement, or what some people would call an elevator pitch, right? Maybe I need to have these things. I need to level up. There are people out there. That's why the 5-Figure Workweek group is so crucial to me, because I do live trainings in there relative and relevant to what people are actively needing right now. I've been through it all. I've seen a lot that doesn't work, but a lot that has. And so I like to be real about it and say, hey, this is what's working today. This is what's going to get you there. This is what's not going to work. Focusing on these areas is going to crush your business. So that stuff is real to me. But if you can improve, do it. But first things first, get yourself to be real and share your stuff.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I mean, in my case, it's, look, if you don't like dad jokes, you probably shouldn't listen to me very long, because I'm going to make them, and I find a picture I like, and I'm probably going to show it to you about 150 times if you're actually on my list, because I think it's a good picture. So if you don't like that, you better leave.
Right.
My wife, it drives her nuts because she says I make these ridiculous puns. I say, whatever. But the improving yourself, I think, is great. And it's early 2018 as we're recording this. And one of the things that I'm doing this year to improve myself, actually a couple things. One, I'm going to take an improv class. And two, I'm going to take a class. There's a group here in DC called Story District, where they actually work with you on building up your ability to tell stories. So I'm going to do that just for me as personal development. And I think that's going to make me better and make me more confident. So I think you mentioned that there are things out there for people if you want to improve your presentation ability. So you should definitely do it.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about improv. I will say this. When I was 11 years old, I started playing drums. I still play drums. But the one thing that not only improved my overall drum set playing ability, but transferred into my real life was learning to improv. Just kind of riff it. Know what you've got and be able to build off of that. Man, so I love hearing that. That's a really great idea. Some improv classes. That's brilliant.
Yeah, well, I can't take credit for it. I actually, one of my earlier guests, I think it was Heather Havenwood, talked about that she had done that and thought that was a fantastic skill for her. And it occurred to me, I said, hey, that's good. I mean, I had done some improvisational speaking in high school, but never kind of the improv acting, which in some sense, that'll be good because I could be a bit stiff and afraid to embarrass myself. And you got to get over that in improv. And so I'm looking forward to it. That is definitely something. Now I want to turn a little bit to talk about course design. And look, we could probably talk for a whole interview for a whole hour or two about course design issues, but at a big picture, how does someone go about figuring out what they should create a course about?
Ooh, okay. So here's the fun answer is that there are the types of people that are creative, they're competent, and that combination can be lethal in both the most positive of ways and the most disastrous of ways. And I see this every single day. There will be people that say, hey, I can do a course about a capsule wardrobe or about online courses or about, launching businesses online, about doing this, about, split it up into a dozen different things. But in reality, maybe that's just a big question mark. It's just a big question mark as to what somebody should be doing a course about. And so what I like to do is just a little bit of market research in two ways. One is asking my audience. You cannot, Bobby, you could have the best online course that's going to give me free education or paid, education on certain topics, right? But what if that doesn't land for me? What if I don't want it? What if I don't need it? I'm not going to be your person. In the flip side of that, if you came to me and said, hey, Michael, I'm thinking about putting together a course as an online entrepreneur, what would you like to learn more about? What are some of the things that you're struggling with? You just have you need more education around. What would serve you best? I could give you a laundry list of things. Now, if you create that and then you tell me, Michael, hey, I created that. And you know how you said you'd probably pay $297 for that? Well, guess what? It's $297. I'd be like, Bobby, you're a freaking genius. Here's my money. I cannot, like, this is unreal that you did this. Like, you see the difference in the feedback. So one, ask your audience, poll them. If you have a Facebook group specifically, if you have a LinkedIn group, if you are part of any of those, ask the right people what they are struggling with and what they'd like to learn more about, and then create that. The flip side of that, if you don't have quite an audience, right, or if you don't get enough feedback, another approach to that is to do some market research on what currently exists, courses that are similar to what you can create. So for example, if I could do a course on dog walking, hair grooming, which I am a bald man, or online courses, I'm going to check into those three verticals, those three niches, those three industries, and see, one, I mean, we could go on and on about this. Like, my brand has nothing to do with online, with dogs. I'm not going to do a course on dogs, right? Let's be real about what we can do a course on, okay, first and foremost. But if I'm doing the research and I see that there are a ton of courses on online courses, courses as I call them, and they all do kind of moderately okay in a marketplace setting. For example, like Udemy. It's a great way to see a laundry list of courses out there. Udemy, if you're looking it up. Okay. It's a marketplace for online courses. You can check out and see, how many people are in each of those classes, what the pricing is, the kinds of content that's included. Now, if you find that there seems to be a big gap in your industry, like, for example, if I'm talking about entrepreneurship and I don't see any courses talking about like the real issues, entrepreneurial depression, anxiety, if like they're not talking about those things, but there's a lot of entrepreneur-based courses out there that are priced at, $4.99 or whatever they're priced at, and yet there's this big gaping hole that I'm uniquely qualified to fill with my content. That's exciting to me, especially if those other courses are doing extremely well. If you see that they're a $500 course and there's 1,000 people in each one of these courses, my eyes get large and I say, it's time to get to work. I'll start on the outline. I'll put in my content, my thoughts, other research. Like, that's when it becomes exciting. So if you have an audience, ask them. If you don't, find other people's audiences, see what they're paying for, see what's not working in marketplaces, see where the courses have fallen flat. What kind of content do those non-performers include? What are they missing? What's not there? Is it too inexpensive? Is it too expensive? Do they not use enough keywords in the titling, for people to actually find it, organically online? So do that kind of research, really do it. And if you're not able, or if this is making sense, yet like you're not that person, like your specialty is not necessarily, to do that kind of work, reach out to somebody. By the way, my hand's raised up in the air. Reach out to somebody that is able to assist you in these ways.
Yeah, reach out to someone like Michael, and he could probably help you with that, I bet.
He could.
Yeah, I think it was ironically Teachable, which is a place to host courses or deliver courses for the listeners' sake. I think I took a course there, and I think they described it that you kind of want to create a Venn diagram to figure out where your knowledge, your passion, and market demand come together. And that's where you need to create a course. Is that about kind of the best, or is that a good way to go about doing it, or putting it in words?
If we were to look at this as just courses only, yeah, that makes sense. Now, the way that my brain works and the reason why my business and my clients do really well is that we look at a step before that. We look at the actual business, like, who are you really? Who's the, if you're just getting started, this is an interesting conversation to say, okay, well, let's look at those. What are you really good at? And what are you super passionate about? We can create a business, a brand. We can create your offerings based on those things, based on the goals that you want to have in your life, the types of things you want to be doing with your time, things like that. So I like to look at it that way and thinking of a course as like an hors d'oeuvre. Like, I'm not a big proponent of doing a lot of freebies per se. So like, I don't do a lot of like checklists and guidelines and this, that, and the other. I don't have the time for that. I like to make money. I like to impact people. And so this is just my own approach because it works really well. I give free content, like you're giving free content on this podcast, right? You have your social media, you're putting out really juicy stuff. And that's good. That's more than enough for the right person. And so for me, I like to dial in on the business, make sure that makes sense, because then that hors d'oeuvre is only a stepping stone for somebody to level up with you, to say, wow, Michael, I loved your course. This was fantastic. I think I'm ready to work with you in these next steps, right? I want to come to your next retreat. I want to work with you one-on-one, right? That's how my business works. But it is all predicated on who I am as a person. That's authentic to me. And I put that in a progressive value ladder of offerings. So yes, the course, like, it should definitely be your competencies, like what you're really good at and what you're passionate about. And that should only be a reflection of who you are and what your business is all about. So yeah, definitely a yes to the course, and bigger picture too.
Yeah, and I think you've made a good point there, which is, look, if you already have a brand, you have to probably add something to that. Your course needs to be about something that you're passionate about, about, et cetera, but it's also got to be consistent with your brand. For example, I brew beer on the side. I'm very knowledgeable about it. I have a passion about it. And I know there's market demand, but it would be kind of weird for Bobby Klink. I mean, again, I guess I could spin off a different business, but it would be a whole side venture to have an online course about brewing beer. That would just be weird in the context of my brand.
Yeah, with the audience that you've built here, that would seem odd. Like, it might be cool because they like you. Like, whoa, that's totally cool. And I guarantee you have people listening that are either wanting to do that or probably do that now, because it's kind of definitely a cool thing to do. But if you build a separate audience for that, right, then you're good. You can certainly do that. It's a different vertical. It's a different business almost altogether. So
yeah, and I guess that's my point. You would have to think through that piece. But so let's move on. Once you've decided on kind of the topic of the course, how do you go about mapping out the content that you're going to create within that topic?
Yeah, the easiest way to approach that is in a linear fashion. So for example, if I'm putting together a new course, which I am actually, but if I'm putting together a new course on creating a business, an online business that can generate 5 figures per work week, right? It's a novel idea. But what would make sense though? Like, how do I get the content? Where do I get it? Like, what goes in this thing? Let's think linear. Let's think step by step. What is the first thing? If you're going to be the pro and deliver this content, what is the first thing I need to know? What is the first thing that you did to then create the promise that you're delivering, like a 5-figure work week? What was the first thing, right? And so we think of it step by step, because if you're all over the place and you're including really good stuff, but it's not building on itself, it doesn't really make sense logically, people they're just not going to follow through. They're not going to remember the content. They're not going to recommend your course. They won't complete it, and they won't be taking next steps with you. That's for sure. So I take a linear approach. Like, what is the first thing that I get to learn? If you're teaching somebody, which at this point you probably have, even if it was just free, like if you jumped on some phone calls with some people, what's the first thing that I get to do or learn that leads to the next thing, and then the next thing, and the next thing, and how do I build from there? Generally speaking, that's the approach that I like to use, and it just makes more sense. It's like, oh yeah, the first thing I did was this, second was this, third was this, fourth was this, and then I get to break those steps down into the details.
So basically walking them through the process of getting to some kind of transformation of whatever that is you're promising to them at the end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you do it well enough, if you give enough forethought to the way that you structure your course, then you're sprinkling in the fact that we're building, right? We're growing. We're getting you from, let's say you're at a 3 and we want to get you to a 7, right? And here's how we do this. This is how it works. This is the step by step. This is the process. Now keep in mind, if you're already at like a 6, right? You're almost there, and this is going to get you to that 7. Keep in mind, we have ways that we can play at a higher level, right? Throwing in those little teasers, those little calls to action for your next steps. Like, hey, keep in mind, this course comes with a free 15-minute discovery session, strategy session, fact finder, whatever you call it. Getting people to that next stage is super critical. So if you can progress, then they know that it's a progression. And if they want to level up, which they do because they bought your course and they looked at probably dozens of courses, right? Or they've followed you for a year or 2, right? If they're already there, give them those calls to action too, because it's the next progression. You're giving them the process that you would normally, Bobby, you're going to spend time on each one of these with people one-on-one. Let's systematize all of the stuff that would go to each one of those people. Let's put that in the course in a sequential order, and then let them know, hey, if you're ready to go bigger, if you need my attention one-on-one, here's the next step.
Yep. I think that's great advice on how to think through what to do. And now, I think we talked about content, and now I want to go to, I think, an area that is actually a big concern for a lot of people. And that's the technical side, the logistics, all of that. I know a lot of people, I think, are scared off and just say, there's no way I can figure out how to do it. Do you have to have a $10,000 camera or really expensive software to create a good online course?
Not at all. There was a couple studies that showed some really interesting thoughts, that makes this more accessible to people than they ever realized. That 68% of online courses in 2017 were shot on a smartphone. It's more than half shot on a smartphone. And some of these courses do insane in as far as revenue. It's absurd. But really, if you have an iPhone, you have the ability to have it, in a horizontal manner. You can have some good audio, whether it's like a $20 lavalier mic that clips to your shirt that you got on Amazon, and a couple of spotlights that you got that were, $50 online. That's gravy. Like, you're good, And think about it this way. If you were just highlighting a course, which I believe is a section, it's a portion of a business. If we're looking at this one thing as an entity, let's treat it as a business. Would you invest $1 million into something that you don't know? It's a gamble. You don't know what the outcome is going to be. You don't know what the results really will be. I wouldn't. There's educated guesses. There's educated, coming from experience. Maybe you would do that, but for the most part, I'm going to set up my phone. In fact, here's a funny story. For the 5-Figure Workweek, I wanted to test I live and breathe what I'm telling you right now. I launched a course for the 5-Figure Workweek when we were still at like 1,000 members or something like that. And what did I do? I'm the guy that does courses. I didn't hire out my team. I didn't go shoot in the studio. I didn't do any of that. I set up my iPhone and I delivered 2 hours of solid content on how to build a 5-Figure Workweek. And I launched it at a ridiculous price, $97 to the people only to the people in my group, 1,000 people. Well, by now, that same course, it's no longer available because we're redoing the entire course. But we're only going to redo it. I'm only investing a nice little chunk of change to do this next course because the proof was in the pudding. At this point, I think we have had over 600 people in that course. And wow. At this point, that's proof enough. I'm going to redo the course. I'm going to do it in, with more content now that we've been established for a little bit now. I've got more content that's relative to this audience, to the people that are looking to build, a pretty substantial income from their businesses online. That's important to me. So I tested my own theory out. By testing it out, I did the course on my iPhone with the lights that I have in my home and some audio. That was it. And it was very inexpensive for me to do. And using platforms like Teachable, like Thinkific, like Udemy, it's so simple, you guys. It's so simple to just shoot some video, chop it up if you need to, using like iMovie or any other, hundreds of video editing apps that you can get on your app store, your Play Store, or whatever it is. And it's simple. It can be really, really simple, but don't overthink it. Make sure it's good quality. Build up an audience that would love to hear from you in this way. Give you some money for your insights, and then allow them to choose into playing with you more. That's the bottom line of this whole thing. Just give them what they want.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I was a step up from an iPhone in mine, but my setup, I got to be honest, isn't that expensive. Since I have this podcast and before was guests on podcasts, I have I think it's a $70 ATR 2100 mic. I use my Logitech webcam to shoot videos. I use I think it's phone booth or photo booth app on my Mac to actually do the recording. And then for my slide share and screen shares, I just do a ScreenFlow video and capture my screen. And I think I had an added expense I want for my slide deck for my course. I wanted to have something signature for my signature course. And so I went on Fiverr and I think I paid someone $40 to create a template or something like that. And that's it. And that's what it cost me. Yeah, and I did get some lights, but yeah, that's it. And that's my entire setup. And a lot of that, quite honestly, I'm using in other places in my video, in my business. I do Facebook Live videos. So it's nice to have an HD webcam. It's nice to have lights. It's nice to have all of these things. So, really it doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Absolutely not.
You mentioned a couple places like Teachable, Thinkific, and Udemy. Do you have recommendations for people on kind of what the best way to host a course is or deliver the course?
Yeah, I have a whole platform strategy that I run through with my clients, but I would say, generally speaking, if you have an audience or you're planning on building an audience or running ads or driving people from, let's say, your social to your course, and you're confident in that, like, even if like, let's say, for example, on Facebook, even if you don't have 5,000 friends and 25,000 followers, but you get a pretty steady, flow of people that you're connecting with that you think this would be a great fit for. Okay. So if you're going to bring people to it, I actually really love Thinkific. They have a free platform. I believe at the moment it's 10% transaction fee pretty much, which when you think about it, if you're testing something out, you're like, this is the first course that you're doing, that you can bring people to it. 10% isn't a whole lot. And so I love the fact that it's free. There's no monthly or anything like that. You can build your own landing pages and, it'll track payments and, the course progress that each person has made. So you can see who's finished, who's in the middle, things like that. You can do, email sequences. You can do all sorts of things. They have some paid options as well that are really good. They unlock a whole lot more, but at 10%, like, it's easy, but it's simple. It's simple to use. So if you're non-techie, it's easy. It's really, really easy. And there's not a whole lot to screw up with it. So it's pretty awesome.
I think that's great advice. I have to be honest. I use Teachable for my signature course. I didn't know about Thinkific, and I have some smaller courses that are mainly free or much cheaper that I use ClickFunnels, which I have just for marketing at any rate. Yeah. So again, I don't think that has to be complicated, and people can choose that. We've been going a long time. I do want to ask you a quick question or two about marketing and sales, because I think that's the other piece. Look, I've learned myself, and I think hopefully people listening understand that online courses aren't quite like the baseball field and Field of Dreams. It's not just if you build it, they will come. So how do you recommend to people that they market and sell their course?
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the approach that I've seen work extremely well now. This isn't from 3 years ago and it kind of worked then. It's like, this is what's working right now, is if you're the type of person that wants to put out an online course, you are the type of person then that, one, obviously has content. Two, you're wanting to make an income, which is why I love courses, because it's one of the easiest ways for you to start your business or add, another income stream to your business. Here's what really works. And this is something else that I know if you're wanting to put your content out there, you have a message, you have something that is valuable to a certain type of person. So the approach that I've taken and the approach that a lot of our clients take is they'll build their own audience using things like Facebook groups, where you're going to be engaging. So, if you have, and we can talk for days, I'm going to keep this as concise as possible, but if you have a really cool brand, you can attract some like a crazy amount of people into a Facebook group, somewhere that people are actively engaging. That's another relevant place where people are spending their time. I will tell you, man, having a Facebook group is simply amazing. And it's a great way to take your message from like your open social media, where more than half your audience probably doesn't care about what you're saying. They're not going to buy your stuff at the end of the day. They don't resonate with that message, that content that you're putting out there. That's okay. Your friends and family and the people you're connected to, that's totally cool. But having said that, if you can remove the people, and I shouldn't say remove, if you can transition people from, your open social to a Facebook group, and I'm saying Facebook group specifically, not a LinkedIn group necessarily, which can be good, but a Facebook group where people are actively spending time and are expecting to kind of follow the leader, so to speak. They want to see what you're doing. They want to say yes to your courses, your retreats, your programs. Do that. Start your Facebook group. Make sure it's awesome. Make sure it is exactly what it gets to be. Okay. Not perfect, but awesome. So we started the 5-Figure Workweek Mastermind group. It's a Facebook group. It's closed and it's invite only. It's kind of exclusive. We don't obviously just let anybody into the group. We want to make sure that they're hungry and they're looking to build their business. Okay. And so we're filled then with the right type of people. The right type of people then know I'm building a course when we launched the very first one. And the reason why it blew up is because they were the right people. Knowing what I was working on, I polled them and asked them what they wanted, how much they would be willing to spend at this point on a course. And I created that and I gave it to them. Weird how now, like I think it was 658 people went through a $100 course. That's not bad income for what took me like 5 hours to complete this thing. I mean, yes, years and years of experience and learning and trial and error and error and trial, but it took me 5 hours to complete the thing, to test this theory out, and made over $60,000 doing that. Easy, really quick and simple. I shouldn't say easy, simple. So if you can build an audience and you are clear on your message and you're willing to put in the effort there, then it's not too difficult then to know what they want, give them what they need, and just build it. You know, that same movie, Field of Dreams, you know, if you build it, they will come. Okay. What happens though with major sports, right? Like there's marketing, you know, they're putting it on TV, they're putting it in front of the right people, and they will get people in their stands, right? It's the same thing with your course. Build up that audience, give them what they're looking for, and then bring them into your next step. That Facebook group gets to be like for me anyway, it was number one. The course is number two. And then there's other things, like we have a retreat coming up at the end of March, which is going to be awesome. And then we have some other ways that we play at a higher level with the people that are, you know, really serious about their business. But grab your audience, ask them what they want, create it, deliver it, rinse and repeat.
Well, so I do want to ask you one, I think, last question about marketing and sales. In the work I've done and research, it seems like there's kind of two models to online courses. One is the launch method, where you have a pre-launch period, you have a launch, you have a card open period, say for 2 weeks, and there's some limited period where people can register, and then it's closed for a while. And then the other is the evergreen, and it could be that people are doing live webinars all the time to sell it, but you can buy it any day of the week. Do you have a preference between the two, and kind of what are the pros and cons of those different approaches?
Yeah, that's a great question. I almost don't have preferences. I just go off of necessity. So for example, to do an open cart and closed cart kind of a launch, that would have to be a signature course for me. It would have to be $2,000 or more, or whatever my big thing is, $1,000, whatever your big course is, $3,000, whatever it costs. It'd have to be a big thing, because that's a lot of time and effort. And quite frankly, I don't have that time or effort. I don't want to make it that difficult unless it's worth it. So open closed cart, I'm only going to do for something that's worth the time to set up. And then kind of having something evergreen is more appropriate for like almost everything else. You know, because if you're actively drawing people into your business, into your sphere of influence, well, then they will be choosing in. They choose in when you can market it to them, for example. And if you have an audience, whether it's just a Facebook page, your Facebook groups that you're part of, whatever the case might be, as long as you're telling people about it and it's the right thing for them, they get to choose into it. I love that. Like every single day we have people that are choosing into our membership group. They love the higher level content. They're ready to go from like the open mastermind, asking some questions, getting value, participating in the live Q&As and stuff like that, to the high level interviews with millionaires, billionaires, the in-depth specifics on their business. They like that. So they are constantly choosing into that. I don't have open closed for that. It's just like, hey, if you're that person, you're already there. You're already choosing into that. And I want people to have that opportunity. And that's just how it's working right now.
I think that's great advice. And I think breaking it between your signature course and others, I think definitely makes sense. I'm going to wrap up with those issues, but I do want to ask you a quick question. And this is something I like to kind of ask all my guests. And that's, if you could recommend to online entrepreneurs something they could do, say, in 5 minutes a day, or something that they could get done by the end of the week to improve their business, what would it be?
Oh, I love that question. Ooh, okay. So if it was, pretty quick turnaround, pretty immediate results, it would be create something amazing. Like, yes, I would love to say, just ask people. Maybe that's step one. Ask people what it is that they want from you specifically. that's something that you don't have to then worry about, like, spending a year building your brand. It's like, what do people think about you right now? What is it that they know about you? What do they think that you could actually do for them right now? Create something that serves that feedback, and then talk about it. Bring people into your message, who you are as a person. That personal brand is magnificent. I'll tell you this, and the reason why I believe that that's really important is 4 years ago, I went through some pretty significant personal, I wouldn't say crisis. It was a personal learning experience where I went from really amazing life to being divorced, being depressed, not working, not doing much of anything, and found myself sleeping in my car. Okay. This is 4 years ago now, not too long ago. The one thing that happened was exactly that. I was like, what am I going to do? Like, I've got to snap out of this thing. It was in a depression is what it was. Looking at it, hindsight 2020. And I asked people, I was like, hey, I know I can serve you in your business. I'm launching this new thing. What is it that you could use for me? And they said, you know what? This is what we can use. And I said, okay. I built it, and then I offered it to them. And within literally 72 hours, I was on 10 Skype calls with potential clients. 5 of them said yes to my $1,000 offering. And just like that, I'd made twice as much, making 6 figures as a consultant from my car. So ask people what they want, create it, then offer it to them. That's simple, something you can do right now. Pick up your phone, message some people, get some feedback, create it, and offer it to them. Simple, do it right now.
That is fantastic advice. Ask, get feedback, and offer it. I don't think it gets simpler. Thanks for all the advice, Michael. It has been fantastic. I know you have some interesting stuff going on right now, and you mentioned it during the interview, but why don't you tell the listeners kind of what you're working on right now other than online courses, why it's exciting, and kind of why they might be interested in it?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So the 5-Figure Workweek mastermind group we now have, almost 3,700 members as of right now. And again, it's invite only. And so, Bobby, like I told you before, like if somebody's listening to this and they've made it especially this far, because we've been going, I believe that they're the right person. So if they're listening to this, here is your invite. We ask 3 questions upon request to join. And the third, how you heard about the group, what drew you to the group. Just mention Bobby's name, the name of the show, or something like that, so that we can approve you to get in. But I would love to see you, if you're listening to this and things resonate, this makes sense. I'd love to see you in the mastermind group. And then from there, if you decide that playing at a higher level in the membership group, which is a higher level, kind of deeper dive kind of situation, if that's relevant to you, then I would then honor our founding member price, which is it's right now it's $7 a month. And on the 15th of January, I believe this episode will air long after that, it's going to go up to $47 a month. If you were to hit me up directly and say, hey, I heard you on Bobby's show and I'm really interested in that, I will honor our previous price. And it's grandfathered in $7 a month to deep dive into your business and learn from some of the interviews that we have, some of the higher level interviews that we've gotten there.
Folks, put down 1 Starbucks coffee a month, or maybe it's 1.5. I don't know what it is, and join that group. I mean, that is a ridiculous deal. You should definitely do that. And I thank you for offering that. So where do my listeners get in touch with you? Where do they find out about your service? Where do they do all that? What's the best way to find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I live on Facebook. That's my lever. So you can find me on Facebook. I'm usually full up on friends, but if you send me a message, I will make sure that we can connect. Hit up the 5-Figure Workweek mastermind group on Facebook, or you can check out the website. It's got a ton of information on the various things that I'm up to in my business. I do a lot of speaking as well. So, you want to connect. I'm going to be in your state this year. I'm sure of that. So michaelmarcial.com, MICHAEL, MARCIAL.com. That's got all my contact info, all the social links, all that fun stuff.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for all of the information. Thanks for the offer. It has been a pleasure having you on the show.
Bobby, my pleasure. It's definitely mine. Thanks for having me.
Okay, now, listeners, stay tuned for my quick legal lesson after the break. I'm going to keep it quick since we went long on the interview and got some great content, but you'll get some good legal advice on course creation issues as well.
And now for today's legal lesson.
Yeah!
Wow, that was an action-packed interview with Michael. He gave some great advice, and I had a lot of fun, which I expected because, look, online courses is something I'm passionate about, I know about, so it was something that was a lot of fun to talk about, and we got a lot of value from Michael. In this legal lesson, I'm going to be very specific about something you need to do if you decide to pursue the option of having an online course. And that is, you need to have a terms and service or terms of use for your course. Now, what you can do this a couple of ways. One, you can actually create a separate terms of use that someone has to do just for the course, or you can have a terms of use that is applicable to your website generally, but has a section about your online course or online courses. Now, why do you need a terms of use? Well, if you listen to me talk for any length of time or you're around me forever, kind of like I said, I make dad jokes, but one of the things I also preach is you need written agreements. You need written agreements across your business for all of your important parts of business, but especially anytime money changes hands. You need to have something in writing that says, here is the deal. And that, look, you're not going to do that in a kind of written up contract for an online course. For your online sales, the way to do that is an electronic terms that sets out what the deal is. Now, you can make a decision. If you're creating online courses, you probably will be testing out with different bonuses, with different things that you're offering and including in the offer. So you don't necessarily have to worry about all those details. You might want to, especially once you get it solidified of what's included, you want to go ahead and put that in the terms of service or terms of use. But, you can deal with that easily by saying, that they will get the course and all other bonuses set forth in their order page. And then you have a record of that and you have all those. But so that's the important thing. You need to set that out. But, look, what do you include in those terms? A lot of things, are going to be pretty generic things that you would have in a website terms of use anyway. But I do want to address a couple of specific things that you need to have as part of your online course terms. Now, one is something that online entrepreneurs understand they have to do, and they have to have a money-back guarantee. It just is the way of the world. If you listen to anyone with credence, they're going to tell you that. Heck, if you listen to some folks on copywriting, for example, Ray Edwards talks a lot about having, a rock solid guarantee. But so you have to have all of that information and you need to have that built in. Well, the problem is if you just are making these claims and you say, oh, we have a money back guarantee, where are the terms of that money back guarantee set out? Well, they should be in the terms of service or terms of use for your website, for your course, etc. And that's where you're going to spell out what do they have to do. Is it, just, hey, you send me an email within 30 days and I give you the refund? Or is it, that you have to show your work? Whatever you want to put as your terms for getting a refund, you need to put that in the terms of use. Because otherwise, if you just had a presentation, oh, we have a 30-day money-back guarantee, but there's nothing spelling it out. Well, you have a 30-day money-back guarantee and you would lose a dispute about that. But, you need to have that set out. So that's the big one. The second one I would say is if you have any limitations about how your course can be used. So, I've seen these in different places and I can't remember where it was, but I remember taking a course at some point where there was a term that said other coaches couldn't take the course. I think it was like I don't remember what it was, but the idea was, hey, and I won't remember that context, but let's say you have a course about Facebook ads. You might have something that says, hey, other people who coach people on how to take Facebook ads can't take this course. And the idea that with that is trying to limit the ability of your competitors to come in, get your information, and then maybe launch a competing course with all your information. I think those are going to be hard to enforce. You're probably never going to know they're doing it. But if you want any kind of limitation like that in there, you need to put it in the terms of use or terms of service. If you are saying, hey, this is for one business and I'm giving you forms and you can only use them for one business, something like that, you'd put that in the terms of use. Again, all of that is whatever you want to put in limitation-wise needs to go in that written agreement that is the terms of use. Now, I can't tell you what you want to include. That's your own business. You have to decide that from a business perspective. But the next piece of advice that I need to tell you about is you need to get a written agreement or some kind of affirmation that they accept it. Now, it used to be the case that you could simply say something that says, hey, by taking this course, you're agreeing to the terms of use. That is not going to be good enough. You need an affirmative act of consent. That's why, if you think about it, every time you update your computer now, software now, or iTunes or anything like that, you have to, again, click a box saying that you accept the terms of use. That's what's called a click wrap agreement. And the idea is that you need an affirmative act, a click on something that specifically says they are accepting the terms of service. Now, I have that through the system I use to sell my courses is ClickFunnels, and there is a script. It's a computer code that is written that puts a checkbox. So basically on any order form, on the order button, there's a thing that says, I accept the terms of service. It has a hyperlink to the terms of service, and there's a box, and then someone has to, affirmatively, like clicking the button the first time, it checks the box, and then they have to click it again to submit the form. So that is how I get it. But again, whatever system you're ultimately using to sell the product, you need to get an affirmative click to signify that the people have agreed to your terms of use. So that's it. That's the lesson for this week. If you go into the process of creating a course, you need to have terms of use. And in addition to having the terms of use that set out any and all pertinent terms or pertinent agreement about the course, you also need to have an affirmative click to make sure that it's binding. So that's the legal lesson. That's the end of this episode. I hope you had a great time and learned a lot. I wasn't joking when I suggested that you really should join Michael's group. I've joined it. It's a growing group. I suspect there's going to be all kinds of valuable information. And like I said, $7 is really nothing. It's a very small investment in yourself. I'm not getting a piece of it. I don't get anything out of it, but it's a fantastic deal, and I would certainly recommend doing it. Also, again, if you're enjoying the podcast, I hope you will take the time to give it a rating and review. That will help to make sure that it rates highly. Other people find it. Other people are getting this great information. Look, that's why I'm doing this. I want to get the message out to people. I want to help people to learn what they need to learn to build, protect, and sell their expertise online. That's my goal, and so I want it to be widely available. So please do that. Until next week, this is Bobby Klink. I'm signing off. I hope you have a great week.
Thanks for listening. And remember to visit mistakes.youronlinegenius.com to get your essential guide to the 4 legal mistakes that can doom your business and how to avoid them. Join us next week for another episode to expand your online genius and your success.